again, guys, gals, and they, thems. I'm back with another retrospective for you all. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favourite PlayStation 2 games, Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank is a third-person shooter platform video game developed by Insomniac Games and published by Sony Computer Entertainment for the PlayStation 2 in 2002. It's a mix of platforming and action-adventure with crazy weaponry and plenty of gadgets. The game follows the story of Ratchet. As the last of his species, the lonely Lombax dreams of adventures across the galaxy. He is working on a ship to use to travel off of Veldin, his home planet. However, he needs a robotic companion to run it. In the distance, a ship can be seen crash landing, and Ratchet decides to investigate. The gameplay starts out basic, with a prompt to give advice that isn't too distracting or invasive, so it's great as a tutorial for beginners, and easy to skip and ignore for returning players. Ratchet's basic moveset consists of swinging his Omni Wrench 8000 for melee, jumping with a double jump, the bomb glove as a start out secondary short distance weapon, and he can crouch and flip jump left and right and backwards for evasion. And whilst crouching, you can throw your wrench for a short ranged attack. Once you've traversed through Veldin and reached the wreckage of the crashed ship, you find a small robot. Ratchet scoops him up and takes him back to his workbench. Clank later awakens from his sleep state. He bargains with Ratchet to help him find Captain Quark to help save the galaxy from evil Chairman Drek. In return, he will power Ratchet's ship. And with that, they set off to find Captain Quark and stop Chairman Drek from destroying the galaxy's planets. The game offers a wide range of weapons and gadgets that the player must use to defeat numerous enemies and solve puzzles on a variety of different planets in the Solana galaxy. The game includes several mini-games such as hoverboard racing or hacking, which the player must complete to proceed. This furry yellow space rat loves heavy weaponry, and the game has over 30 weapons and gadgets to choose from, with some gadgets being optional for the game's progression, such as the Sonic Summoner and the Gadgetron PDA.
Public display of affection?
No, not that kind of PDA. Some of my personal favourites are the Pyrocyter, Glove of Doom, the Hollow Guys, Tesla Claw, I love the sound it made, and the Visibomb, and of course, the Rhino. Later in the game, you can get gold versions of some of the weapons. There are 10 in total, with half of them being accessible in the first playthrough and the other half in challenge mode. This is where the secondary collectible of the game comes in. The gold bolts that you find hidden across various areas aren't just shiny trinkets to collect. They're the currency you'll need to buy the gold weaponry. These gold versions are upgrades and come with cool effects, more damage, and sometimes better range. There's a hidden gold Rhino model in the files that's inaccessible, but it has a random chance to replace the model of another weapon in the Help Weapons menu. Your main collectible and the currency of the game is bolts. You'll need around 600,000 bolts to afford to buy every weapon and gadget in the game, which sounds like a lot, and it is. I only managed to be able to afford the Rhino as a kid legitimately with no bug exploits a couple of times. These days, as an adult, my time is more valuable and I will push myself out of boundaries to exploit the bolt glitch to make my life easier. Sorry, not sorry. The Omni Wrench is not just a melee weapon, you will also use it to progress through the game solving puzzles, using wrench cranks to extend bridges and trigger other environmental changes, and to use as a quick method to get around on rails. In later games it can be upgraded for extra damage and other uses. The game features a fairly basic health point structure, with nanotech being your source of health. You'll start out with 4 hit points, and later will have the option to spend a large number of bolts on additional health boosts. The first upgrade costs 4,000 bolts and gives you 1 extra hit. The second final upgrade costs 30,000 bolts and gives you 3 extra hits, totaling a maximum of 8 hit points available. However, if you play as Clank and have purchased these upgrades, his health will remain at 4 hits during Clank stages. Clank is also a playable character. You can send Clank out to areas Ratchet can't access, where he can control the little robot dudes called Gadgetbots. The tiny robots are cute but deadly, and can be commanded by Clank to do various actions, including attacking enemies. Clank can also transform into Giant Clank on certain planets. As Giant Clank, you can smash stuff like Godzilla, and use rockets. Controlling Clank can be sluggish at times in both his normal and giant forms, and does slow down the pace of the game a little for me. However, it's not enough of an impact that I dislike playing as him. Clank is cute, so he gets away with it. Another gameplay element which is used more in the sequels is the ability to control ships to shoot down targets. This mechanic gets expanded on in the sequels where you can take part in space races. The game was very well received by critics, who praised the graphics, gameplay, voice acting, audio, soundtrack, and comedic approach to the story. Some criticism was directed at the camera, the characterization, especially regarding Ratchet's personality, and the low level of difficulty in early stages. I have to disagree though. In my opinion, the game is fairly well balanced for difficulty as a first installment, with only a couple of small difficulty spikes. And as for Ratchet's personality, that whole awkward story arc where Ratchet and Clank fall out was a key part of character development. Ratchet spent most of his time alone, with no friends or family. It's only natural that his emotional maturity has the capacity of a teaspoon. And even though Clank is a robot, the story shows that it doesn't make him immune from making mistakes. I feel that a lot of people gloss over that, but that's just my opinion. Don't get me wrong, Ratchet certainly lost his edge over time, and I'm still undecided on whether that's a good thing or not. Too fluffy, not as edgy. By July 2006, Ratchet and Clank has sold 1.1 million copies and earned $31 million in the United States. Next Generation ranked it as the 49th highest selling game launched for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, or GameCube between January 2000 and July 2006 in that country. Combined sales of all the Ratchet and Clank series reached 4 million units in the United States by July 2006. As of June 30th, 2007, the game sold more than 3.7 million copies worldwide. After finishing work on the Spyro the Dragon series on the PlayStation, Insomniac originally intended to launch a game codenamed I-5, Insomniac Game Number 5, for the PlayStation 2. The developers, however, never warmed to it, and the idea was scrapped. Ratchet and Clank was based on the idea by Brian Hastings, which would feature a space-traveling reptile alien who would collect various weapons as he progressed through the game. Ratchet's final form was decided upon after Insomniac considered a space lizard with a tail and various terrestrial creatures, including dogs and rats. Feline features stood out to the developers because of the associated sense of agility. Another early idea was to have 3 small robots attached to Ratchet, which would perform different functions. However, Insomniac realised having the robots was both complicated and created confusion about Ratchet's appearance, leading them to only have one robot, Clank. Not much was cut from the game, except for a few weapons and gadgets that weren't fun when Insomniac Games prototyped them. There was the Revolverator, a drill gun which would spin enemies around once Ratchet impaled them, and the Mackerel 1000, basically a fish that took the place of the wrench. Both got cut because they were either too hard to use or just didn't add anything to the game. Shortly after changing the game from I-5 to Ratchet and Clank, Naughty Dog asked Insomniac if they would be interested in sharing the game technology used in Naughty Dog's Jak and Daxter Precursor's legacy, asking that Insomniac in turn share with them any improvements that were made. Insomniac agreed, resulting in most of the Ratchet and Clank engine technology being developed in-house by Insomniac, but some important renderers were developed by Naughty Dog. Looking back on the agreement, Ted Price said that Naughty Dog's generosity gave us a huge leg up and allowed us to draw the enormous vistas in the game. Pre-production of the game began in late March 2001, with a team of approximately 35 people. The game went into production in November 2001, and by the end of the project, the team had grown to 45. The game was released in North America on November 4, 2002, and Australia on November 6, 2002. It was released in PAL regions on November 8, 2002, and in Japan on December 3, 2002. In November 2003, Sony added Ratchet and Clank to their greatest hit series of the games for the PlayStation 2, when Ratchet and Clank Going Commando was released at the time, and the game was similarly added to Sony's Platinum range, used in the PAL region, on August 22, 2003. The game was added to Japan's The Best range on July 3, 2003. It was also the only game to be bundled with the PlayStation 2 in Japan. Thankfully, this means copies of this game are in abundance, and I happen to own a Japanese copy to showcase the regional differences. The Japanese version of the game has a few changes. More noticeable for me was the contrast of colours. It's much brighter on the Japanese copy, and Ratchet's gloves are a burgundy colour instead of looking brown. The PAL version might be different though, as I haven't played the US version. Also, Chairman Drek is called BBB, which stands for Big Bad Boss. The frame rate is noticeably better too, but I'm not too fussed about that. I just love how vibrant everything looks. The Gadgetron vendor has funny text that shows up if you wait long enough. Quick select is good, but it doesn't pause the game like in the sequels. Also, double tapping triangle to switch is great. Dan Johnson was the artist for Insomniac Games, and you can find textures in the game with his face on them if you look close enough. It became a running joke through the series that Dan was featured one way or the other. Part of the technology that Insomniac Games used that was inherited from Naughty Dog was to hide the loading screens behind animations whilst travelling to planets. It also saved disk space, and they had extra parts of the planets, such as hoverboard racing, hidden underwater. Skill points are another additional collectible that you can get in the game. They are used in other games to unlock special unlockables like cutscenes and skins. They're optional. I don't tend to go for all of them, but you can do if you want an extra challenge in the game. My favourite gadget is the Trespasser. The Hydro Displacer is my least favourite gadget. It's boring. The little guys on Hoven look like Buzz from Spyro 3. Gebnik Base is one of my favourite areas, along with Orkson and Metropolis. The skyboxes and scenery in this game are gorgeous, and only get better as the games go on. The music is great too. Here's some of my favourite tracks. The sampling used for some of these tracks were perfect. It's funny how Drek's name gets longer as the game goes on. It's so obnoxious. It's a bit pants that you don't get the bolt grabber until Planet Core 2. The pickup distance for bolts in the first game has always been a bit of an annoyance for me. It's the same as the first Spyro game, where you have to walk very close to them before Sparks will pick them up, although that distance is fixed later in the games for both Spyro and Ratchet. When you get the Map-O-Matic, if you open it up straight away to look for secrets, you'll find underneath where the Gadgetron girl gives you the Map-O-Matic, there is an area that you can go to that is secret in a teleporter. When you enter that area, it's a break room for Gadgetron employees, but they're all chickens. This is never really explained, but I just think it's kind of funny. I like chickens. Drek's fleet is probably the most forgettable level for me. Whenever I play through this game, it's always the one that I forget exists, up until right to the end of the game, and I hate it. I don't like any of the missions, I don't like the layout, I just don't like it. It's boring. Ratchet and Clank was the first game I bought, along with my PS2 after I saved all my pocket money for it. I got my console bundle in Woolworths. Rest in peace. But I forgot to buy a memory card, so I had to play the same first few levels a few times over. On the first startup of the game with my shiny new PS2, I had to wait about 10 to 15 minutes between each segment of the cutscenes. I don't know if that was a common thing to occur with new PS2s, but it happened with mine. Although despite that, it was money well spent, as I still have that PS2 working to this day, and it's what I use to record all my footage for my videos. Did you know, in Blackwater City, the showgirl that you speak to in order to enter the hoverboard races has a nifty trick. Do a jumping dance for her and her assets will grow. Was this done on purpose? Nobody knows. It was definitely done on purpose, you filthy animals. During the 6th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards, the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences awarded Ratchet and Clank with Console Platform Action Adventure Game of the Year. It also received nominations for Game of the Year, Console Game of the Year, and Outstanding Achievement in Animation, Art Direction, and Gameplay Engineering. The game was adapted into an animated feature film of the same name, released in April 2016. A remake of the game for the PlayStation 4 was also released to tie in with the film. Unfortunately, the movie was a flop, and in turn, the tie-in game was also a mess. Instead of sticking to the source material, it tries and fails to improve on the story for the first game. I don't class this game as a remake, but if I had to, I'd say it's the worst remake of a classic I've played so far.
The kids love their social medias. Hashtag Gadgetron.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Ugh, kill me. I love revisiting this series. It's one of my favourite game franchises out there, and still looks great to this day. The humour is on point.
And blast it!
Look, plumber's crack.
What did you just say?
I said, look, the plumber's
The
back.
characters are easily likeable, and the bad guys are easy to hate. The message the main story tells is somewhat reflective on the world we live in today. The increasing extreme weather we see across the world isn't a coincidence, and it isn't generated by some secret organisation either, so put those tinfoil hats away. We haven't succeeded in inhabiting other planets yet, so we should look after the one we have. Don't forget to recycle. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a like if you did like it. Leave a comment with any games you'd like me to cover in future videos, and don't forget to follow me on my social channels. Links in the description below. Bye bye!
And if you don't like it, you can take your whiny, sniveling, snot-nosed populations, form a line behind me, and kiss my... We're still on? Well, turn it off, you idiot!